Hey guys, it's me, Ellie, aka Looks from the Crypt, and today we're gonna be getting to my Letterboxd again.
Bruh.
What happened was, last video, that was supposed to be September through November. However, I went to go sit down to film it and realized that's a lot of fucking movies. It was like 100 movies. So, I decided to do September through October, which made me really late to the game, which leaves me with now doing November through December so that I can have a manageable amount, be caught up, and be able to be on like a actual schedule for these and do these every other month. And if getting into the good, the bad, and the ugly sounds like fun to you of everything I've watched in the past 2 months, grab a snack, grab a drink, and keep on watching. So first up is Barbarian, which I actually watched technically on Halloween night, but it was past midnight, so it counts as November 1st. I gave it 3.5 stars on my second watch. Basically, I liked it a lot more on my second watch. Next up, we have Borderlands from 2013. I give this movie 3 stars. Found footage movie that honestly, it's just really forgettable for me. It was about some kind of like people going to like the British countryside to like investigate some sort of paranormal activity. Ooh, and yeah, it was just really forgettable. It wasn't a bad movie or anything like that. I had like likable and realistic characters, effectively build tension, etc. However, the ending just felt really flat. It was super anticlimactic, so not my favorite, but I also didn't hate it either. Next I have is We're All Going to the World's Fair from 2021. I give this movie 4 stars. This is a rewatch for me. This movie immediately became like a comfort, like put on in the background, vibey movie, and that was exactly like when I put this on. I will say it is not a horror movie, not in my opinion. I feel like it's kind of falsely advertised in that regard. However, it is certainly like a coming of age drama that's really bizarre and weird, that centers around the internet. I feel like if you are a person who had grew up perpetually on the internet, who is like my age or so, you might like this movie quite a bit. I found it to be quite relatable as a weird kid who liked the internet a little bit better than being around people. Next I have is The Blackout Experiments from 2016. I give this movie 3 stars. It is a documentary about the infamous haunt known as Blackout, or I guess if you want to call it a haunt. I am on the fence if I really consider it one. So if you're not familiar, Blackout, they are known for being a pretty infamous place where you are given the location, the date of in which you're supposed to go. And it's like a haunt that you go through by yourself. It's supposed to be an experience. It's completely in the dark. They're known for having really disturbing subject matter and like pushing people to their limits in the sense, and like breaking down a lot of boundaries. Like there's a lot of nudity and like just really, really bizarre scenarios. And I am extremely fascinated by Blackout. And I also understand why documentary is the way it is to help, I guess, keep up that mystique that there is. However, everybody in this goddamn movie chose to be so fucking cryptic about the haunt and why it's like important to them and why they chose to create the Blackout experience that it's kind of hard to like have much like interest in because nobody was really like saying anything exactly. Like they're definitely trying to be like super cryptic and shit like that on purpose, but personally I actually wanted to know about it. So I'm a person who's very fascinated with trauma, horror experiences, and fetish and how all those things operate together and separately. And I feel like Blackout is an experience where all those things work together, and I feel like some of the participants don't fully like acknowledge that that is why they're drawn to it and how they've become addicted to doing this experience over and over again. And another thing I find to be really fascinating about Blackout is because it's very similar to other haunts that are extreme where there's touching and it's really brutal and they degrade you and stuff like that. However, the way people talk about Blackout is always a very positive, like formative experience. Like they had changed as a person in a very positive way and they were able to overcome something, as opposed to other haunts where it's a poor experience that like even further traumatized them. I feel like a lot of our participants that become addicted to Blackout fail to realize that this is their coping mechanism for trauma by recreating it in a controlled environment, which is just really fascinating. I just really wish this was like a better documentary that maybe it feels like those who are involved in creating Blackout who operated weren't really that interested in talking about what they do. However, I feel like if they were on board to do that, this would be a really great documentary.
Let's fucking go.
Now we're into the weird bitch shit, my thing. So next up we have is Heck from 2020. I gave this 4 stars. It is just short film from Kyle Edward Ball, which is a name you might be familiar with if you're on the internet pertaining to horror stuff. He is the dude who is behind Skinamarink, which is the new viral internet sensation movie that is too scary to fucking watch, kind of thing. It hasn't hit theaters yet. It's had mass viral popularity due to I've never seen a movie be pirated this much before, and it's actually fucking insane, and it kind of bums me out. But I have my tickets to go see Skinamarink already booked. I plan on making a video for it and everything. I'm so excited. And Skinamarink is basically the long form film adaptation of Heck. I highly recommend Heck. It's really hard to describe because I consider this short to be a horror experience as opposed to a horror film. It's really heavy on capturing an atmosphere, capturing a feeling, and taking you somewhere as opposed to scaring you in a way that you're used to. This is a completely inventive and new way to take on horror. Heck takes a very innocently frightening concept and makes it absolutely fucking terrifying. So basically a child wakes up in the middle of the night and they realize their parents aren't around, and it's from the POV of the child, and it has this perfect dreamy vibey middle of the night feel with the TV on the blue screen kind of vibe. And I feel like it takes you back to a time very successfully when you experience that. And it's just go fucking watch it. I will link it. I am obsessed and I cannot wait for Skinamarink. Okay, I completely forgot I watched this somehow because I actually really like this. And next I have is the Incel Tapes from 2022. I gave this movie 3 stars. I try to watch as much found footage as possible. Once I found out there was an incel found footage movie, I was all over it. I saw the trailer and I was like, let's fucking go. I am ready for this movie. And you know what? I wasn't really disappointed. I feel like the whole goal of this movie was to rip on incels, and I'm totally here for it. And the thing is that, this movie captures, the lifestyle and culture really well. I feel like the filmmakers have equally as much beef and also knowledge of incels as I do, so this was a really fun and entertaining watch for me. Area this movie exceeds in is it depicts what is real people but exaggerated, if that makes sense, which makes this movie successfully funny and entertaining throughout the whole thing. And the thing that's really weird about this movie, so this is a horror movie, of course, and it is centering around an incel who is just a fucking insufferable dude who lies to his friends and tells them that he is dying of cancer and only has X amount of days to live, to try to, do some bucket list things. However, his actual plan is to kill them. And this movie, just seeing our incel go through his bucket list and doing all this shit, it's very sex comedy-esque. However, once the horror elements kicked in, that's kind of where it lost me, unfortunately. Nonetheless, I had a blast watching this, and that's all that really matters, right? And watching the Incel Tapes inspired me to take a trip down memory lane and watch the short documentary called Shy Boys IRL from 2011. It's a documentary about love shy men, which is basically the term that is used before incel, about men who are socially awkward and have immense difficulties forming relationships with women. And it's centering around these dudes who congregate on a forum called loveshy.com, and then they meet in real life. I gave this 3.5 stars. This is honestly a really great documentary, and it's very truthful and objective into the lifestyle. And it appears to be that there's no coursing or anything like that to push a narrative other than just allowing these men to speak. And it's really interesting just to see all the walks of life within this category of person. It kind of shows us the 2 different kinds of incels. One of which is awkward, weird, nerdy guys that don't necessarily consider incels, just literally dorky guys who are shy. And then the like misogynistic, women hating incels, which is really, I don't want to say fun, maybe that's not the right word. It's really interesting to get into this like parallel. I recommend checking out this movie if that like kind of vibe interests you at all. I especially recommend it over TFW No GF. This is a way better film. Next I have is Godforsaken from 2020. This is a rewatch. I gave it 4 stars. I actually bumped up the points on this one just because I gave it extra points for just being as exciting on the second go. I feel like this movie is equally as scary and fucked up the second time and still like has me invested and like disturbed by like the events that are going on. Is it a perfect movie? No. The acting kind of sucks in some spots. However, the story and a lot of like the shit that's going on is so strong that for me it makes up for it. Personally, I really recommend Godforsaken if you're a found footage fan and want something that's different for the genre. It's a possession film, but it's a whole different take on a possession film I haven't seen before. Next I have is Alone with You from 2021. I give this movie 2.5 stars. Alone with You is about like a young woman who is like awaiting the arrival of her girlfriend coming home. However, things just aren't what they seem. And I was really excited for this movie. However, I called the twist very, very early on, which kind of bummed me out and kind of ruined the experience a little bit. It's a really cool concept. It has super pretty and captivating shots. It has a very brutal ending. And all in all, I like the story and its twist. However, it's just way too fucking predictable. And even in like the third act, it gets super weird and artsy, which is a thing I often love, which I kind of wish we got this element sooner to convolute the plot a little bit so that I didn't see what was coming, if that makes sense. And this movie did a really great job at being claustrophobic and eerie and really setting a feeling, you know what I mean? Because it does take place, its entirety takes place in an apartment. And personally, I live in an apartment, so I understand the feeling of being stuck in here. So for me, I just wish it had that like artsy feel throughout because I feel like it would have really pushed the envelope for me and made this movie a lot stronger if I didn't like call the twist into like the first fucking 20 minutes. Next I have is the McPherson tapes. Letterboxd says 1989. I think that's when it was like technically released, but I don't think that's when it was made. I think it was made in like 83. I don't know. Well, I can't recall. Anyways, I give this 2.5 stars. The thing that is a bummer about this movie is I have a very fond memory of watching this on Thanksgiving when I was very young with my brother and watching this like on YouTube and thinking it was real and it was the scariest shit I've ever fucking seen. However, you know, not all things live up to when you were a child. You know what I mean? Like you ever have like that like snack that you loved as a kid, like or like that candy and then you eat it as an adult and you're like, this shit fucking sucked. I only like that because I was a little kid. That's how I feel with the McPherson tapes. I have to give it credit for where credit's due for being very inventive at the time and being way ahead of its time. However, it's really just someone's home movie of a weird night and not necessarily in a good way. However, I do think that like the fucking aliens are really cute in this. Holy shit. So now I have Tusk, which is a movie we will drink to. So I've never seen Tusk. This is my first watch of Tusk. And holy shit, how have I never seen Tusk? So I give this movie 3.5 stars, which I feel like is really low now. I feel like I should bump that up a bit. I feel like that might not be fair. However, I fucking love this movie just because it was impossible for me to determine basically the entire duration of this movie. It was a horrible movie or a great movie, which says a lot. This movie was honestly like weirdly fucked up and like much more than expected and a lot funnier than expected. And like the thing about this too is that personally, like I seen like the shots, you know, of Justin Long as like the walrus or whatever, like out of context and you're like, haha, funny, just Long as a walrus. But then you watch the movie and you're like, this is actually very fucked up and disturbing. To quote my Letterboxd review, I will say that this movie is way better than Human Centipede or A Tumbling Doll of Flesh because it stars my favorite scream queen, Justin Long, and I will not elaborate on anything in that sentence. If you know you know, basically. So I watched Netflix scariest horror film, Incantation, from this year. I gave it 2.5 stars. This movie was honestly really fucking mid and way too fucking long. This movie was just another case of being like very, very hyped up for absolutely no reason. I thought it was a pretty fun movie though. It had its charm. Like I really like the like play along aspects, but then other than that, I don't know. I just feel like it also shouldn't have been found footage. I feel like it was a really like small plot device that was used that after a certain point like didn't really do anything, if that makes sense. I really wanted to like this one. However, I feel like I might be due for a rewatch, but it's also like it was so fucking long that I don't really want to watch it either. And one that is a very true in a looks from the crypt fashion, which is Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell from 1995. I gave this movie 4 stars. I fucking loved it. It is known as being the Japanese Evil Dead. However, although that be true, I feel like that overshadows this movie severely in a way. This movie is just an SOV fever dream where everything is just off, which is something I love. Basically, if your movie is just slightly wacky in a way it's not supposed to be, I'm gonna love it, you know? It just has really strange dialogue, has awesome practical effects, insane stop motion, strange editing that kind of reminds me of Hausu in some ways. Amazing movie if you haven't seen that. And meanwhile being both intentionally and unintentionally hilarious. I highly recommend this movie for like a group or party watch. I loved every second of this fucking bizarre ass movie. So next is a movie that I am going to spoil. So close your ears if you don't want to hear about it. But I personally need to spoil this movie because I need to air out my beef with it. And that movie that I am being a hater towards is Don't Worry Darling from 2022. I give this 2.5 stars. This felt like a movie where a man was high off his ass, half-hashed out a movie, and then they made it. I did not enjoy this. So... And the thing is, I was kind of looking forward to it for being like a thriller or like, you know, not like a straight horror movie. I was kind of looking forward to it. So I was pretty disappointed. But I did keep with a decent rating because it is a well-made movie. It's not like shitty in the sense of like how it looks. Like it's like pretty, there's good acting, etc. However, like the story fucking sucks. So it's like this very Stepford Wives-esque like scenario, like everything's perfect and all that good stuff. 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community begins to worry about his glamorous company he may be hiding. Blah, 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 blah. Secrets. Well, those secrets are that basically they are living in the metaverse. So we basically end up finding out that this like secret utopian life is basically VR, and their bodies are kind of just like being kept alive while they're in this like metaverse like kind of vibe and to live out this perfect life. And the thing is, there's like a lot of things that are brought up that once we find out what the grand reveal is, nothing fucking makes sense. And that's why I think it's stupid. And it's kind of disappointing because I feel like I actually really like this idea to a degree. Maybe I'm dumb. If you've seen this movie, let me know. I thought it was going to be about aliens. I thought it was going to be like an Area 51 movie. I got really fucking stoked. And then it was just the metaverse. And I was just like, oh, okay, fuck this. And then like, I don't know. It just wasn't very good. And I really wanted it to be good. Also, like, Florence Pugh's character is an idiot because she's all like, what the fuck, this sucks. But then, like, personally, I would just live in the metaverse being a dumb bimbo housewife that's drunk all day instead of working and paying rent and shit like that. Next I have is The Secret Life of Jeffrey Dahmer from 1993. I give this movie 3.5 stars. I really like this fucking weird, like, TV drama, like, esque, like, Dahmer movie. I have a full review of this movie up on my channel. Go check it out. Next I have is like another like short documentary called Love Me, Love My Doll from 2007. I give this 3.5 stars. It's about the men who have like real dolls and where they stand with it. And I really like this documentary because it actually it came out from all angles. It has a character who is severely like in love with his real doll, that is his girlfriend, that is who he wants to spend his life with, and he has this deep connection to. We have a man who has like a fucking million of them. It's actually kind of disturbing how they're just like in like his like all of his storage areas, and he has so many of them, they're like under his bed and shit. However, he just wants to fuck them. And then we have a sex doll doctor who I want to report to the authorities. So I'll get into this. So I'm sorry, this was like my main takeaway from this movie, and I was reading Letterboxd reviews to see if anybody else was as like affected by this as I was. However, nobody seemed to give a shit except for me. So I'm taking this conversation here where I am given free reign to talk about whatever I want. So the sex doll doctor, he has sex. So his role is exactly what it sounds like. Your sex doll is something wrong with her. You mail her to him. He fixes her. Well, he fucks them. He fucks the sex dolls after he repairs them. And I'm really disturbed by that. I feel like that's like a crime to some degree to fuck another man's sex doll. I feel it's like a violation of consent in some kind of way. I really don't like it. That really like gave me the ick more than anybody else in this fucking documentary. And we also have like this weird like sex doll dude who has like a bunch of guns and stuff. Oh my god, guys. So I really like bad movies sometimes, and this is a bad movie. So next I have is Bad Seeds from 2013. I give this 1.5 stars. But here's the thing. I gave this movie 1.5 stars, but then I fucking immediately bought it afterwards. So if that says anything, I feel like that should say it all, you know? So Bad Seeds follows, it's like a found footage movie, and it's like about these like bad girls. They're like 13 years old. They're partying, they're doing drugs, they're like sneaking to bars, they're having sex, they're doing like all these, they talk back to their parents, they do all this shit that they shouldn't be doing. I feel like this movie like really wanted to be like a Larry Clark movie, but just wasn't. And it was very reminiscent of like a movie like Megan is Missing in terms of just like cringy ass like burnout teenage girls like doing like cringe ass shit. However, like Megan is Missing, shit happens in that movie. That movie gets fucked up. However, I mean this movie tries to get fucked up, but then like it's just so underwhelming. However, if you want like a good laugh, this is a really funny movie. It's like supposed to be disturbing, but it's not. Like there's just so many funny moments. Like the little girls are like playing in like cow shit, and then they're also like, I don't fucking know. They like are smoking like weed out of a bong that doesn't have like water in it. They're like just being really mean to each other. Maybe I'm like an outlier here, but I thought this shit was so fucking funny. Unpopular opinion celery here, and that is talking about Grotesque from 2009. I gave this movie 1.5 stars. People really liked this movie and thought, I like, a friend of mine told me it was like really like fucked up, disturbing, ruined their night kind of thing. But this movie was so fucking stupid for me. I gave it 1.5 stars. If you're like in the like extreme horror community, you definitely know this movie because it's one of like the really accessible ones. It's like on Tubi. Basically, a doctor basically kidnaps a young couple basically after like their fucking first date and forces them to like into like this like weird like tormenting like torture situation where like they have to like he's like, I'll like hurt you, but I won't hurt her if you let me do this. You have to choose. Very Jigsaw. This is like a really mean-spirited movie that didn't have a plot, which is not something I necessarily have beef with, but just like I just really didn't like fucking care at all. And like my reason why it was really hard to take seriously was the like sound effects were like insane. Like the it felt like somebody like had like a soundboard with like sound effects that they were pressing at random and they didn't know what button did what. if you're not like distracted by how gross this movie is, because like it's like absurd, like he does some pretty fucked up stuff. However, I was watching this with like the sound on kind of loud, so maybe that's like a thing that a lot of people overlooked, because I know a lot of people are trying to not watch torture movies on full volume so they don't seem like a psychopath. But I was watching this kind of loud, and I feel like I probably wouldn't have noticed unless if I was. However, like for example, like this dude is like getting stabbed, and like the stabbing sound is like literally like a gut bubbling like fart sound instead of like a stabbing sound. Like the practical effects are really weird, and like what, like he like cuts the dude's penis off and it makes like a paper tearing sound. It's just weird. It's really bizarre, but like not in a good way. I'm just like, this is like kind of just bad. Next, I have this Elephant from 2003. I give this 4.5 stars. I absolutely fucking love this movie. I know this is like a love or hate movie, but this is a movie where I kind of understand why. Because what can I say? Not everybody wants a slice of life film about a school shooting. Get the depressing and artsy thing is really my thing, and it takes place in Oregon, so it was kind of an obvious choice for me to check it out, considering I live in Oregon. I'm gonna sound like an ass, but it's one of those movies where I understand why people didn't like it, but I also feel like to a degree, people who didn't enjoy it didn't really understand its intention or artistic choices. It just kind of went over people's heads a little bit with this one, because yes, this is a boring movie. It's a slice of life movie that has a very mundane, vapid dialogue following several teens in their last moments. However, this lack of action is the point. It's just that everybody's just having a fucking day, and this is how they're spending their last moments before a very tragic event that they could never foresee happening to them. And I feel like I saw a lot of people complaining about like the shock factor that this film delivers. And I would say technically, yes, it does bring shock factor, but then at the same time, if you're a civilian going about your day, shopping, going to the movie theater, going to school, whatever it may be, this is going to come to a shock to you if this happens to you. There is no way for somebody to be prepared for something like this or really anticipate it happening. And I feel like that was the point was trying to be made here with how you are being abruptly taken into this, because that is what those people who are affected by it are experiencing too. They're being abruptly woken up into their harsh reality of what is going on around them. I really love this movie. The cinematography is fucking beautiful. This movie is striking. It's absolutely unforgettable, unnerving, and equally upsetting. If you like this kind of movie that makes you feel something, a kind of movie that makes you want to have a palate cleanser afterward, I really recommend Elephant. I fucking love this one. And my palate cleanser after watching Elephant was Fuck the Devil from 1990. I gave this movie 3.5 stars. So I can confidently say I've never seen a fucking movie like this. And I just want to say, anyone can make a movie, right? Like, literally, technically anybody can make a movie. I can make a movie right now if I wanted to. You can make a movie right now if you want to. Yet, not everybody can make a shitty movie that has this much charm. I feel like there's a difference between a shitty movie and a bad movie. You know what I mean? And if you're having fun while making it, and I am having fun while watching it, it's a shitty movie, but we're here for a good time, whereas a bad movie is a bad time. The soundtrack's insane. This is just a fucking, like, crazy ass SOV movie. It's just trying to rip off Evil Dead, and this has so much charm. Basically, you know that is just some kids who were having a lot of fun, who saw Evil Dead and were like, hey, I want to make that too. And they did, and they just had fun with the day with like their friends in their apartment complex, and I'm a sucker for that. Oh, if you're interested, I got like the Cool Ass Vinegar Syndrome release. They still have like a bunch of copies left, and it has both Fuck the Devil 1 and 2, which leads me to my next one, which is Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker, which I gave 4 stars. And all I have to say about this one too is SOV horror and voyeurism have something in common, in the sense that the closer it is to being somebody's home movie, the better. And that's exactly what this is. It feels like these two movies were made in the same day, and I live for this shit. I love the fucker. I don't even really understand the character of the fucker exactly, but I love him. This has my favorite body flying out the window scene and my favorite bathtub scene, death scene, which says a lot. And the thing, this is like a really good, both like 30 to 40 minutes each. I recommend watching these for like a movie night, honestly. They have like probably 10 lines of dialogue combined. So this is definitely a really fun one for a movie night, just to like sit there and laugh your asses off. And this next movie we will take a drink to. I feel like we probably should have taken a drink to Fuck the Devil 1 and 2, but in a positive way. But I'm taking a drink in a negative way for this one. Hate Crime from 2012. I give this 1.5 stars. If you are a part of the extreme horror community, you should be familiar with Hate Crime, because I feel like this is a movie that comes up a lot. And also, if you're familiar with found footage, this movie comes up a lot, because I know like the dude who directed this was in like the found footage phenomena documentary and stuff. However, this isn't good. Like, I felt like the creators saw August Underground, went, I can do that too, which I'm sorry, bud, but you can't. And the thing is, it gained 1 star solely just because I found this actually be really fucking impressive. Nearly 55 minutes of the movie were done in one continuous shot, which is extremely difficult to do. And weirdly, nobody talks about this. I'm actually impressed with that. Despite me not really enjoying this movie, I am kind of blown away by being able to accomplish that. And the thing that bums me about this movie is that this movie is very cheap, of course. And I feel like that's why this premise could work. However, there are things that are added that take away from the realism in this. And I feel like in this case, for a movie like this to be effective, realism is absolutely necessary for effect and feeling. But like, if you're making a movie that's supposed to shock the audiences into being like shitting bricks over what's happening and realize the true realities of like racism and like anti-Semitism that still occurs, we need to have that realism. Otherwise, it just feels a little goofy. Like, they have like Sharpied on tattoos of Swazis. There's fully clothed rape scenes and very like the like family's like tied up in like these ties that like anybody could have broken out of. So just like, huh? You know? I had a shitty couple days, it looks like, because next I watched is The Dirties, and I did not fucking like this movie. From 2013, I give this 1.5 stars. I feel like I watched like a completely different movie than everybody else, because people love this movie, and I feel like this is a movie that I should enjoy, but I did not like this. I feel like everybody got really stoked on this because Kevin Smith like paid to like distribute this movie or has some sort of affiliation with it. So people are like, oh, Kevin Smith liked it, so I should like it, kind of thing. Like a subconscious like influence, I guess, just because I feel like it just felt like this movie just like an excuse to load a movie full of other movie references to show how like weird and nerdy these kids are. And like, I know I'm a movie nerd. I love that shit. So I know who they're appealing to, and you can't just do that to make me like a movie. So if you're unfamiliar, this plot is about a couple kids making a movie about like, you know, nailing the school bullies. However, one of them is actually a psychopath who decides to carry out a school shooting. Oh, and this is also a fake found footage movie, so that's another reason why I really didn't like it. I don't know. I would say I just recommend watching Duck, the Carbine High School Massacre over this. I like that movie quite a bit more, and that is a dark comedy about Columbine. It is exploitative and weird. However, it accomplishes a lot more than this movie. Next up is The Watcher from 2022. I give this 3.5 stars. I fucking love this movie. I had me fucking screaming at the edge of my seat. It was generally creepy and eerie, and it fucking made me have the heebie-jeebies. Like, that's all I gotta say. I had fun with this one. It got me going, got me pissed off. If a movie evokes emotion, that's good. That's like really good, you know? And basically the plot follows this woman who her boyfriend, husband, question mark, the person she's in a relationship with, gets like a job overseas to a country that she doesn't speak the language of and isn't familiar with, but he is. And she's basically isolated and alone in her apartment. It feels like somebody's watching her. It's very Hitchcock-esque, and like it does a really good job of making you feel alone and isolated with her. And it also has this very cold and dreary vibe, and nothing really ever feels safe. You get so upset for her because she is trying to like communicate what's going on, and nobody believes her, and it's so fucked up. And even though the ending is unexplainable and is impossible, I still loved it. Next I have is Last Night in Soho from 2021. I give this 3 stars. I feel like I have nothing to say about this movie without spoiling it. And I don't want to spoil it because it is a very well-received movie that you may be interested in seeing. So I'm just going to say, just go fucking watch it. It's an experience. It's a well-made movie that's like absolute eye candy. So like you can't really go wrong with watching it. Like you won't be mad that you watched it, you know? Next I have is All Hallows Eve in 2013. I give this movie 1 star. It fucking sucks. I was inspired to watch it because I love Terrifier 2, which made me want to watch Terrifier 1 again. I did watch Terrifier 1 again. I didn't log it because I wasn't paying full attention because I had seen it before. Still not my favorite, but it's a fine movie. However, I had seen All Hallows Eve before, but I turned it off because of how bad it was. And then I started watching it again. I was like, oh yeah, I turned this off for a reason. It just wasn't very good. However, spoiler alert, does help support my joke theory that Arthur Clown is an alien. Okay, so next I have is The Little Girl Who Lives Down in Lane from 1976. I fucking love this movie. Just go fucking watch this movie. It's like, stars Jodie Foster when she's hella young. She's a 13-year-old named Bryn who lives peacefully in her home. And she appears to live pretty independently. She goes about all of her tasks by herself and everything. She takes care of what she fucking needs to. She means business. Nobody can seem to leave her alone or respect the situation she has with her father. And that is basically all I will say, because this movie has so many fucking twists and turns that will have you fucking screaming and at the edge of my seat. I feel like every time I thought it was wild and I thought I knew what was going on, it fucking outdoes itself again, and then again, and then again. And this movie is very creepy, strange, and borderline exploitative, yet fucking amazing. And I just recommend this movie. I feel like this movie would have gotten a bit better of a score for me if the ending was a little bit stronger to match the rest of what we got. However, I just feel like it didn't. But this movie really had me just screaming the whole fucking time. And I just hope when I grow up, I know I'm a 25-year-old woman, that I can at least be 1% the woman that Rin is in this movie. So I rewatched The Sadness again. This is my 4th time watching this movie. I gave it 5 stars. I don't care. This is my movie of the year. I'm going to get a tattoo of this movie. Enough said. Next I have is All My Friends Hate Me from 2021. I give this movie 2 stars. This is like a dark comedy, which is about a dude who is reuniting with his college friends for his birthday for a weekend of partying and like all this stuff. However, things are off. Things seem off. And all I have to say is, I just don't know how I feel about this one. I rated it and I gave it a rating, but I still don't know how I feel. Basically, if you want to be gaslit for 93 minutes, this is the movie for you. Next I have is Coherence for 2013. I give this movie 1.5 stars. I fucking hate this shit. People really seem to love this movie, but it's not good. I feel like I was in the audience for it, perhaps. However, despite me not being in the audience for it, I cannot excuse this absolutely fucking awful camera work and editing that this movie had. It just didn't land. And I feel like this is another one of those movies where a dude like showing off his fucking ass like came up with this movie, and then all of his like other like super high friends like applauded him, and like the crowd goes wild. And I feel like this is just one of those like big brain movies for small brain people who like get high off of, like the smell of their own farts, basically. Like this movie, which is one of those ones where I was just like, yeah, this didn't need to exist. Next I have is the LA AIDS Japper from 1994. I give this movie 3 stars. Just saying, the title alone will determine if this is the movie for you or not, how that makes you feel. This is a very hilarious, strange, and at times boring, yet overall great time. I really like this. I think it was both intentionally and unintentionally hilarious and overall pretty tasteless at the same time. This is an SOV trasher piece that is somehow less exploitative than you would think, but it's still pretty damn sleazy at the end of the day. It's not very graphic or gore-filled, however, has the best part of SOV movies, and that is a crazy plot with poor acting, and has the most batshit ending I have seen in a minute, and I like this one. If this movie doesn't immediately turn you off by the title, go check it out. Next I have is Duck, the Carbine High Massacre from 1999. I gave this movie 3.5 stars. This is such a weird movie. I revisit now and then and again just to confirm that it's a real movie that exists and isn't like something I made up its existence kind of thing. It's a SOV exploitation, satirical take on Columbine. And again, another movie based on the title. You'll know if it's for you or not, depending on how that makes you feel. So, the goal of this movie is to be exploitive, shocking, and tasteless in your face, and that's exactly what it is. But not only is it a satire of the Columbine Massacre, however, it's definitely a satire and commentary on how the nation views school shootings and how mass media tends to inadvertently be as tasteless as those who are viewing this film at the end of the day. And this movie 100% mirrors how the media and tabloids exploit this tragedy intentionally, and I can't say that I'm mad at that because it points out a thing that people don't like to acknowledge, and I hate to say it, but this movie is genuinely fucking hilarious, and I am a sucker for any kind of media that makes fun of characters that we are meant to hate, even if they are our main characters. Another documentary, I have The Gift from 2003. I give this 4 stars. I don't think I can actually show the poster on here because it is like literally a penis smoking is is the cover for this movie. And I'm gonna like preface like this due to my line of work. STI counselor, says infectious disease dude professionally. This was a very interesting watch for me. If you get past the fucking bizarre ass art and the like very 90s/2000s-esque editing, this movie is very, very insanely thought-provoking and brought up a lot of questions for myself and my work, especially pertaining to like the language and connotations to being negative and positive, and like the discussion of wanting to prevent people from becoming infected with the HIV and stigmatizing the disease and emphasizing how life-altering it is, meanwhile trying to ensure those who are positive that they can live a long, healthy life, and like it's nothing to be like act like it's the end of the world over, if that makes sense. And it's a super double-edged sword because yeah, The Gift is basically following those who are HIV positive and then also those who are currently HIV negative. However, they are looking to contract the virus. Really interesting just in how it talks about language and just this concept of bug chasing, how we view this virus, and like despite like how far we've come. Now we have Bones and All. I fucking love this movie. 4 stars. I immediately like pre-ordered this shit after leaving the theater. So naturally I loved it despite it not being a movie I would normally go on my way to see, because this definitely read to me as more of like a drama romance movie over horror, with like basically a drama romance movie with a horror motif as opposed to a horror movie. But I love this so much. This was a really cute, moody, and strange coming of age love story for the weird bitches in the back. So me. Have my new favorite weird bitch being Anna Cobb, who stars in We're All Going to the World's Fair, and then a classic weird bitch being Chloe Sevigny. And I was truly invested in this story and at the edge of my seat. Majority of the actual horror sequences really had me in a hold, wanting to see what happens next. And despite it mostly being like a drama romance, we had a fair share of pretty fucking brutal moments mixed in here. And just so much atmosphere, and like, it's a really fucking pretty movie too. Next I have is Mr. Creep from 2022. I give this movie 2 stars. It's directed by Isaac Rodriguez, who's had some bangers in the mix. However, that motherfucker just makes way too many movies, so there's bound to be some duds. So basically, some college students, they stumble upon a secret television broadcast of a dead serial killer, and they search for its location to figure out what's going on. And this movie just wasn't that great. I feel like it just didn't build any tension or atmosphere or really drew me into doing anything to get me to care. I feel like it shot for the stars concerning. I feel like it was pretty reminiscent of like internet ARGs, but couldn't accomplish that same unnerving feeling that is required here. I immediately thought of 2 hours and 32 minutes when they started showing the tapes, which for me is a prime example of like internet horror. And like, I love 2H32. That's one of my favorite ARGs. However, it just didn't really nearly have like the same effect. And like, Mr. Creep himself looked like a scare actor from your local haunted house. I just feel like a lot of this didn't really make sense. And I was forced in for a lot of details that I shouldn't have been forced to. Which is weird to say because personally, I'm a person who doesn't like to be spoon-fed stuff, but I feel like there's a line where it's like, you're making me do way too much work because you have so many plot holes. Next I have is Mysterious Skin from 2004. I give this 5 stars. This movie broke me. I cried my ass off. Like, I don't cry at movies really, like, at all. I have, like, a list on Letterboxd of all the movies that made me cry. This movie made me really cry. This is one of those movies that's like a disturbing, depressing movie, however, that I fucking loved and broke me, but it's like, I don't know how soon I'll be watching it. If you are okay with like harsh subject matter of like sexual assault, stuff like this is like actually like such a fucking amazing movie. Like, please watch it. It is so good. The tagline kind of says it all. 2 boys, one can't remember, the other can't forget. That kind of says everything about this. The plot of this movie is about 2 boys. One grows up to be like a teenage prostitute, and one is a dude who has grown to be obsessed with alien abductions. However, they discover they had like the same horrifying truth as when they were kids that have kind of brought them to this point now. The prostitute is one who, they're both molested as children by like the same person, and even together, and the prostitute, he is painfully aware of what had happened. However, the other boy who is obsessed with like aliens and stuff like that, he completely repressed this and doesn't even realize what happened. He thinks that he was abducted by aliens and his like has these really strong visions of the alien abductions and what happened to him, and it's like just absolutely fucking heartbreaking. This is just such a really stunning and beautiful movie with amazing atmosphere, great shots, a perfect soundtrack to set the mood. It's like very shoegazy, which really fits this like 2000s vibe. And like, despite not being a horror or a sci-fi movie, it has the best alien UFO scenes I have ever fucking seen, which is crazy to think it's just in a drama. And this movie says so much about trauma, especially sexual trauma. This is a movie I highly recommend if you are comfortable with that like subject matter. If you're a survivor or somebody who is not, who is trying to like understand what somebody may be going through, this is just a phenomenal movie that says so much and speaks volumes and is just so moving in terms of like how we process trauma, how that can differ from person to person. But yeah, needless to say, this is one of those movies that really made me feel something that I like feel like I could not forget long after watching it. Made me cry my fucking ass off, but also like one that I'm not afraid to admit made me cry, if that makes sense. Next I watched is Night Killer from 1990. I watched this on like a movie and I gave it 2 stars. And this movie is just fucking boring. It was kind of like more of like a crime thriller kind of vibe. I don't know. I just wasn't really a fan. I could take it or leave it. For a movie called Night Killer, no kills occurred during the night. So I have been recommending this movie a lot. And that movie is fresh from this year. I gave it 2.5 stars. Okay. So this was a decent movie. I feel like it was really overhyped, but I had a good enough time watching it. It left me surprised a number of times and I was invested, even though all I could think about watching this is how this gave me so much like you / like American Psycho vibes, where I was just like, I'd rather be watching those movies, if that makes sense. So I live in Oregon and the like main plot is that they're going to like Cottage Grove, and like they're acting like it's like this really pretty like sightseeing place, but like Cottage Grove is not that whatsoever. So that was like a really funny thing that I feel like it's like a detail is overlooked that a very specific population be like, bitch, what the fuck at? And my main beef for this movie is that we had so many loose ends at the end of this movie that I feel like I would have rather swapped having some of that shit wrapped up than being filled with so much like dating cringe that our runtime got filled with. Next I have is Resurrection from this year. I gave it 3.5 stars. All I'm gonna say is watch this shit instead of Men. This is like if Men was a fucking good movie. This movie really surprised me. I was fully invested. I didn't know what to think the entire time. For a future you, after you watch this movie, consider the title once you complete it. And then you're gonna have a moment. Next I have is Jigsaw from 2002. Not, the Jigsaw you're thinking of. Some random ass Jigsaw. I don't even know what the fuck this movie is about. All I really remember from this movie, because it's all I fucking wrote in my Letterboxd review because it's such a forgettable movie, that they go to a bar that serves NyQuil, which is like enough said of like a situation. Next I watched is Santa's Slave from 2005. I watched this at a movie night and like, holy fucking shit. So, if you haven't seen this movie, you should. It feels like this movie should have came out 10 years prior to what it did, when it did. It stars Bill Goldberg, if you're not familiar, is like a wrestler or like a fighter, boxer, some kind of fucking dude like that. He's a buff-ass Santa beating people's asses, basically. And it's like just insane. It's hard for me to like believe that this movie exists. And like, I feel like that's all you really need to know whether or not you're gonna have fun with this movie. I didn't log it, but I know for a fact that I watched Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 on the same night. Personally, I kind of prefer Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 to the first one, just because it's the first movie, basically, because we get all those flashbacks, plus memes. And, like, what else can you ask for it? This is just... The Silent Night, Deadly Night series is just so fucking sleazy and stupid, and I love it, and I'd have to give it, like, 3 stars. I watched Black Christmas 2006. I gave it 2 stars. The thing about this movie is I don't remember this movie being this bad. I thought it was pretty decent, I feel like. But then I rewatched it and I was like, man, this movie isn't that good. So they like give us like, we've all seen Black Christmas, I hope. The original from the 70s. One of my favorite movies of all time. Not just holiday horror. It's basically like if you want to see Black Christmas, but with the addition of like awkwardly shot, bad dialogue, weird eyeball fetishism, etc. And like the thing is like once we remove like the mystique of the killer, we just find out that like he just like the Yellow Hulk, like he kills people because he has jaundice, which is just like, huh? What? This movie just made me feel like some things are maybe better left up to the viewer's imagination than if this is the result we get. I watched Christmas Bloody Christmas from this year. I gave it 3.5 stars. I made a point to go see this movie in the theaters. I'm like so stoked on this like trend. All I gotta say is I feel like I may have mentioned this in my previous video. However, Terrifier 2 fucking kicked open that door for independent low-budget horror, and then everybody fucking ran through it, and I am here for it. I am here to support it. I am so excited to be seeing movies like this in the cinema. You know what I mean? And basically what happens is it's Christmas Eve, and there is a robotic Santa Claus, like an animatronic Santa that is like has some kind of hardware malfunction and starts killing people and is basically indestructible. And if that sounds like fun, a lot of these movies are movies where it's like you're gonna know based on the description or like the title or like the vibe if you're gonna like it. If that sounds stupid to you, don't bother. But if that sounds like weirdly awesome, check it out. It was really fun, and it had all the like cute little Easter eggs for like horror nerds. You know what I mean? And like the effects were awesome. I thought it was legitimately funny and had lots of gore. I feel like there's a lot of complaints about like the dialogue and the humor and stuff like that. But like personally, the kind of personality and the kind of background I come from, I'm like, that felt like a realistic conversation. That felt like shit that people would be saying. Everybody would be talking over each other, having this like fucking like bullshit like meme conversation, and it didn't really feel cringe or forced. And I felt like everybody understood what they were talking about, because this movie does have a big focus on horror and like counterculture, like punk and metal, and I feel like they actually understood it. So another documentary, Mail Order Murder, the story of Wave Productions from 2019. I give this 4.5 stars. I loved this. Wave is one of like the most obscure production companies that fucking deserves a documentary and explanation of what they're doing. And if you're not familiar, like, personally, I think the thought of Wave is so interesting and fun, and I just love how I felt like everybody's having fun while making these like absurd ass films. So Wave was like a horror production company who branched into the realm of making fetish films that like basically people could be like, hey, I want this in like a movie, and if this is my fetish, and they would make it, and but it's still a movie, it's not a porn, you know what I mean? And I think it's really interesting because I feel like it's funny how fetish movies are coming very strong to the extreme horror realm, and audience want them out and think this is new. Like with people think like people are like Lucifer Valentine brought this here and we want it out, and somehow is like keeping it here, whereas that's completely wrong. Wave brought it here, and Wave is the reason why it's so strong. I feel like they're just so dismissed when it comes to this conversation around fetish films and horror, when they're like the pioneers of it. And also, not to mention, they had like such great like influence on how online sex work is. Like even today, they're doing what like cam girls are doing, like, you know, pay to like get X, Y, and Z custom videos, X, Y, and like all that shit. They were doing that before like the concept was even like thought of, but like with mail order videos. I own a couple of their movies. They're pretty silly and goofy. I like really want to watch more, especially after watching this documentary, because the thing about this that I really liked was I really enjoyed seeing the women of Wave, because they just all seem so cool and fun and seem to really like fondly recollect their time on the set of these films. There seemed to be like a true love for the experience. There was no like malice or like poor experience. And like one of the girls, she said something that really stood out to me, was that like, I thought this shit was stupid, but then I was there every weekend making a new film. You know what I mean? Like it has like this certain vibe that I just really liked. And not to mention, something I'll say, another reason why it pisses me off that Wave is so like underlooked in a way, is that they're pretty fucking hardcore. Like, props were not props. There's no safety on set. Debbie D actually like fucking hung herself and like had to just like hope things went good. Like nothing bad happened. So yeah, I recommend checking out this documentary just because it will like say a lot about horror and like sex work as a whole, especially from the lens of viewing it from 2022 and where things kind of started with that. Next up is Winter Beast from 1992. I give this 2.5 stars. I thought this movie was fucking boring. There's a lot of cool concepts, props, and effects that were like severely underutilized. And like every time we got a glimpse of something cool, I was like, why was this a glimpse as opposed to the main focus or something we saw more? I just felt like it was a genuine waste of money and resources, like for like the literal Winter Beast to be in the movie for like 5 minutes, when that was like the coolest part of the whole thing. Next I have is Decoys from 2004. I give this 3 stars. This is the most fucking insane movie I've seen in a minute. This movie is like if American Pie met The Thing, but was also a ripoff of The Faculty. I know I threw a lot at you, but that's just kind of what it was. So there's like insane CGI aliens disguised as hot babes that came to Earth to infiltrate and kill the population. And I just couldn't help but laugh every time like a fucking alien was on the screen. It's like the funniest shit ever. This is just a really truly special breed of like Y2K weird shit that you'll either hate or have a really good time with, and I had a good time with it. Alright, another movie we must take a drink to. So now I have is the Alpha Test. I have been like waiting. I have been so excited to talk to you guys about this movie. It's from 2020. I gave it 3 stars. This is one of those movies where it's like hard for my brain to like comprehend that it exists. And it's a bad movie, but it's awesome. And that's where I'll justify its rating. It's like obviously like fucking low budget. It's stupid and fucking like insane. It's about like a suburban family who like gets like a robot that's like supposed to be like their like assistant. Like that's supposed to like, oh, Alpha, go clean the dishes. Alpha, go fucking pick out my outfit. You know, everybody's dream robot that does all the shit that you don't want to do. However, after all the mistreatment and like abuse that Alpha like encounters, she goes on a fucking killing rampage, which like results in like an entire AI uprising. Also, this isn't a spoiler. This is already like in the trailer and like the description. But yeah, I don't know. The thing about this movie is I was super committed to its fucking absurd ass plot. And it's a weird one because it's obviously a shitty movie, but I found it super entertaining and funny. Plus, Alpha's design is actually pretty unsettling. It's literally like just like a person in like a mask, but the mask is fucking dope. And it's also certainly not a robot. Like, it looks weird, but it works. And this movie just never really has a dull moment. And it's just so weird. And it has like a decent amount of kills. And our more tame parts that are just like conversation setup are hilarious. I feel like I can't really recommend it to people because I know it's not good. But if you like a good, bad movie that you're gonna have fun with, check this one out. Next I have is Adult Swim's U-Log from this year with 4 stars. I can't really say anything about this movie, and I don't want to spoil it, so just go watch it. It's on HBO Max. It's not that long. If you're familiar with its creators, who are also responsible for Adult Swim's Too Many Cooks, unedited footage of a bear, etc., you'll know what you're kind of in for. If you like that shit, you'll like this. Next I have is the Christmas tapes from this year. I gave it 2 stars. Basically, I'm going to watch any movie that has Greg Sestero in it. I don't know why. I'm just a fan for absolutely no reason. The Christmas tapes is like a Christmas found footage anthology movie. It's basically like VHS, but in the holiday season. So, a family's like movie night on Christmas Eve is interrupted by Greg Sestero, who decides to like show them all these fucked up movies that he has in a box. I don't know. It just wasn't really like that great. I feel like every point this movie has is just because of Greg Sestero. He did what he did in like Infrared, where he just acts his ass off. Like, he is determined. He really believes in each movie he's in, it feels like, and like serves. So I appreciate that effort. However, like, each story was just really underwhelming. Didn't really go anywhere. But if Greg Sestero showed up at my home on Christmas Eve and made me watch like some shitty movies, I wouldn't be complaining. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about Cool Duder 69, but here I am again. I watched Amityville Karen, which also stars and I think is directed by him. I'm just convinced like all of his films are like money laundering scams, like to a degree. I've seen like better acting, set design, audio and camera work, and costumes in like pornos. It's I'm just committed to my like title as Chauncey Phillips' #1 hater, so that's the only reason why I watch this. Otherwise, I probably would have completely passed on this. Next I watched is Mean Girls. It is something I need to watch every year. I give this movie 5 stars. This is like one of the only comedy movies I find to be hilarious and is so relatable. I feel like, you know, there's like before Christ and after Christ. I have that same feeling, but towards before Mean Girls existed and afterward. Next I watched Dead End from 2003. I give this movie 4 stars. This is a movie that is now in my yearly Christmas rotation. I have never watched this movie before. This movie, like, it's one of those movies, like, if I watched this 10 years ago, I would have thought, like, it was, like, a false memory kind of thing, like, and I would have to confirm that it existed, but I just watched it for the first time, and, like, basically, it's Christmas Eve, and we're on our way to, like, our, like, family's, like, home or whatever, and the dad takes, like, a shortcut for the first time, Never done that. Always takes the same way. However, it turns out to be like the biggest mistake ever, considering all these like bad events happen on this road and we get lost. It's surprisingly engaging and interesting for the entirety of the movie taking place in a car. And it is equally as funny, disturbing, and scary, all being all oh so Y2K. Although I called the twist pretty early on, I wasn't bothered by it because the journey there was amazing. And in addition to that, this movie does have a double twist that I feel like was far ahead of its time. I don't know. It was just like a fever dream bizarre Christmas movie that is now on my yearly rotation, and I can genuinely say I have not seen a movie like this. And lastly, the soundtrack was very weird, but had me feeling some type of way. I really like this. I highly recommend. Next I have is The Big Shave from 1967. This is a short film from, I think it's Scorsese, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, ours. I really like this. Basically, the description of this movie says it all. A man goes into a very, very clean and sterile bathroom, proceeds to shave, and then he shaves and shaves and shaves until he is just bloody, and it is gross, which I feel like it's very effective in its small runtime, and also feels particularly bizarre for its year because it is from 1967. This feels very ahead of its time. It feels like something that came out in like the day and age of the internet. Next time is The Apology from this year. I gave it 2.5 stars. This is like another Christmas movie. Basically, this woman, her daughter goes missing 20 years later. She's a recovering alcoholic preparing to host like a family Christmas when her like estranged ex-brother-in-law that she had an affair with comes unannounced, and she's kind of forced to let him stay with her. It has a big twist that like I can't really talk about because otherwise it fucking ruins the whole movie. This movie started out pretty good and intense and had me anticipating, however, how like the story was to unfold and where do we go from here. However, like it just kind of fell apart after a certain point, and it's kind of unfortunate because I was really invested in this story. I just wanted more from it overall. Next I have is Christmas Evil from 1980. I give this 3.5 stars. This is a fucking weird movie. This is definitely like the definition of a movie where you do not know where the lines between reality and fiction are blurred within our plot. I recommend this one. I don't really want to say a whole lot because it's so fucking like, huh? What? This dude, I feel like, okay, one of two things happens in horror movies. Like, either you like witness like a slightly strange sex act as a child that either makes you have a fetish, or as an adult you murder everybody you counter. We take the latter half. He sees Santa kissing mommy and then decides he wants to like be Santa, kill people. He like basically stalks the neighborhood children to like see if they're naughty or nice. It's really weird. He has like a lot of this like, there's a lot of this like holiday mysticism that's going on. Like he's driving like a sleigh that's like going through the air, but you don't know if that's truly happening or not. This is a great movie. I recommend. Next is Gremlins. I give this 4.5 stars from 1984. I saw this in the theater where our like cute little art house theater was playing it. I love this movie. I just like miss when there was like more crazy deaths in like children's movies. It was truly just like a different time. And if you haven't seen this, like what the fuck are you doing? I feel like everybody's seen this, so you must. Also, okay, this is like not a drink to this movie, but like a cheers to this movie. And that movie is Pearl from this year. And oh my god, I loved it. I did not think I was gonna like this movie, but like I really did. Like, this is like my American Psycho. Like, I don't know. I had weird feelings about this one because like, do I give a shit why the old woman from X is angry and horny? Not really, but I feel overdue for like a rewatch of X now that, so I could feel like a stronger relation between the two. However, despite the like feelings I have with like this disconnect, I still love Pearl. Truly, Mia Goth's performance was amazing. I was scared by hearing about this 10-minute monologue, but that time goes by effortlessly. And the thing about Pearl is that something really spoke to me. I feel like maybe a lot of people, and maybe especially women, can relate to how Pearl feels, especially with like She just wants to be seen. She just wants to be heard, and she knows that she is bigger than what her family or her mother or what anybody has in store for her. And this like true pain that she has while still having this blissful, naive ignorance about the world. There's just some really standout scenes where I truly felt like I could feel what Pearl is feeling, and that is her gut-wrenching screams from not getting the role, her smiling through the tears to the end credits, and somehow with this film, I felt so bad. I felt so fucking bad for her to the point where it was hard for me to really be mad about her obvious batshit actions. And like in my head, I was internally trying to justify all the poor things she did because I just felt so bad for her. And then there's something about the way that she was able to convince me and sell to me that she was a star before we even knew that I just really loved. Pearl was both successfully extremely uncomfortable and hilarious at the same time, which is something I really love. And it was genuinely akin to like a movie like American Psycho. And I want to know more about Pearl. I want to have another movie, another like sequel, or as prequel to X that is taking place between when Pearl takes place and when X takes place, because that ending leaves you in a way where you just want to know how things went after that. However, my one qualm with Pearl is that I did really like this movie. However, it's fucking hideous. Like, especially with how stylish X was, I expected for Pearl to have a bit more of that. More than just for like the saturation to be blasted to accomplish a Technicolor look. I think it'd be really cool if this movie was maybe like actually shot on film or something, but I love Pearl. And I'm ready to say I'm not sure if it was necessarily a horror movie as opposed to just like a character piece, but in like a great way. I watched Old People, the like Netflix movie from this year. I gave it 2 stars. I really didn't really care for this. Like somehow like I sat there and like literally watched this movie with no distractions, yet I had nothing to say. This is definitely take it or leave it, very meh movie. Next, I watched this Krampus from 2015. I give this 4 stars. I watch this every year. What else can I say? It's really fun, spooky, funny, cute. It has that perfect winter vibe. My only weird thing is like I bought the naughty cut or whatever last year. However, I didn't feel like there was any difference, but whatever. I like this movie. Next, I watched this magnum opus, the movie, from this year. I gave it 3 stars. To sum this up, I'm the target audience for a movie like this. This is basically, if you grew up on Jackass and CKY, I recommend. Personally, I grew up watching Jackass from a very young age. Like, Johnny Knoxville's my first crush. Like, this shit was like the epitome of humor when I was young. And like, if you feel that way, buy a copy of this and like support Addison because this movie is awesome. Basically, it is the kids who watched Jackass and decided to recreate it at home. This just gave me like insane nostalgia for being an unruly child who maybe had a little bit too much fun with their siblings and friends growing up, that with like little to no adult supervision. And we got a variety here. It was very clearly inspired by Jackass and CKY, and we got a variety in what like those who had inspired this, like skits, stunts, pranks, and gross out scenes. This was really fun and just brought back a lot of memories of my childhood. So if that sounds like a good time to you, I recommend. Next, I watched A Smiley Face from 2007, also weirdly directed by Greg Araki, who also directed Mysterious Skin. However, this is a completely different take. I give this movie 4.5 stars. It stars Anna Faris. She is my favorite dumbass. Like, you know what I mean? And it stars her. She is a fuck up idiot who also is a fucking stoner. And she has a very busy day ahead of her. And she has several tasks on her list, which is, so basically, she gets high, gets hungry, accidentally eats like 12 weed cupcakes that her roommate made that are in the fridge, realizes she fucked up, has to go buy more marijuana, has to go to like an acting audition, gets broken up with. She has to go like, fucking replace the muffins. However, she owes her dealer like $400. Yada, yada, yada. Amazing. I love this movie. It does a really good job at it like captures like the feeling of being high in a way, if possible. It gives like this like weird like airy like on a cloud feeling, and it's so fucking funny. And like I feel like the feeling of being way too fucking high to function and having a large task list is very, it's accomplished very well. And it feels like you're there with Jane trying to help her not fuck up worse. And then I feel like, despite popular belief, because I feel like so many people have beef with this movie being like, blah, 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 stoner movies, like, blah, blah, like, stoners aren't like that. But, like, this is, like, painfully accurate. Like, is it exaggerated? Yes, of course. But, like, that's some real shit. I love this movie. It's super funny. I think it's hilarious. And I highly recommend if you're trying to watch a comedy. I forgot to mention at some point, I definitely watched Black Christmas 1974. I think I forgot to log it. Amazing movie. It's one of my favorite, like, slashers of all time. Amazing atmosphere. You can't fucking beat that movie. It's a 5-star movie for me every time, boy. And last and kind of least, in a way, I watched Bloody Oranges from 2021. I gave it 2.5 stars. This is a French film. And it's supposed to be like a dark, disturbing comedy where a retired couple gets overwhelmed by like their debt, tries to win a dance contest to, you know, help pay off some of that. A teenage girl is like trying to discover her sexuality, while like their son, who's like a lawyer, is trying to like navigate that shit with like being the lawyer for like a politician. I don't know. I just feel like this movie really wanted to be happiness, which is one of my favorite movies. However, it just wasn't. And it just doesn't land, like, at all. Like, it lacks everything that made that movie enjoyable. Like, it's not really, like, successfully uncomfortable or funny at any point. And, like, my main problem with this movie is that we spent an hour accomplishing absolutely nothing to be blindsided with shock factor, which isn't necessarily negative, but in this I feel like I need to have the like rain cloud over a sunny day feeling in a way, and this just kind of blindsides you with shock factor in like a way where you're just kind of like, what? Okay, I guess this is happening now, if that makes sense. And the main issue here is that it doesn't get me successfully invested in these characters, which I feel like is necessary for like a very dialogue heavy movie where nothing happens for the first half of it. And once these, like, we're hit with these punches, it doesn't really evoke any emotions or make me feel that disturbed or uncomfortable. It just kind of plays out. And the thing that really bothers me about this movie is the last 10 to 15 minutes are truly amazing and encapsulate everything I want from, like, a dark, disturbing comedy. However, that's the problem, is that it only happens in the last 10 to 15 minutes, whereas I feel like this movie would have been a great movie if we had that kind of feel and tone of like oh, I shouldn't be laughing at that, or like I'm uncomfortable or I feel absolutely devastated by what's happening throughout the movie as opposed to just at the very end. However, I will say I am American. I am an English speaker, and I kind of wonder if maybe like the humor doesn't translate that well to an American audience, or like if the translation in general is poor, especially because I feel like during some scenes, I feel like it would definitely be more enjoyable for somebody who does speak the native language, because while reading the subtitles, I felt like it was during the very dialogue heavy scenes, a lot of it's just like kind of people like yelling over each other and talking and that kind of conversation, like kind of like the beginning of like an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but constant. And it would be numerous people talking at once, talking over each other, and it's hard to differentiate who is speaking when and what they're saying. So maybe I missed something in the mix because of that. Alrighty, and that concludes my Letterboxd roundup of November through December. I watched some good shit. I definitely watched some good shit. I had a good time during those 2 months. I watched some very amazing movies, some movies that made it to my top, and honestly, not a whole lot of awful movies. So I'll consider it a win-win all around. And as per usual, all my links, my Instagram, my Letterboxd, whatever, all that shit will be listed down below. And of course, as always, if you have any recommendations, please let me know, considering all I fucking do is watch movies. So let me know if there's a movie you think I should watch that rips. I'll check it out. That is all from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is me, Ellie, aka Looks from the Crypt, and I am out.